Hello there, this is Mycogio, and this is part 3 of the video How to Grow Mushrooms at Home. It is important that you understand that we will need some of the things that we use in the other video, in the video part 2. Like for example, the spawn, which is the mycelia that is growing in the grains, and also the mycelia that is growing in substrate. We use those two in order to bring them outdoors and then just try to grow the mushrooms outdoor. Now you can substitute the spawn with pretty much the blocks of mycelia or the mycelia that is growing in substrate. If, for example, you're not doing it, growing it from the mycelia to the spawn, the grains, and then to the substrate, you can buy the blocks of mycelia that you can buy at Target, Walmart, Amazon, and those blocks that comes, different companies bring them, and the only thing that you need to do is just to get those blocks wet and then get the mushrooms, so you can use that as a substrate and also as a substitute for the grains and the substrate. In this case, it's actually substrate. So in this case, what you buy there is what I show you as my step number 3.
You guys remember this from the other video, right? So first we start with the mycelia in a plate, or it could be in a tube, slant, right? Then after that we transfer, as you see in video part 2, how to do this transfer to the grain. And in here I show you a jar, a mason jar, but also you can use this same bags that you see here in order to have the grain. After you have the grain, then you would move on to the substrate. Make sure you can see that is straw or hay, and the mycelia is already colonized. In this case, is start growing on the top. And in this one, these are wood shapes, and the mycelia is colonizing those wood shapes. In this case, this is shiitake, as you can see there. So this is the main thing, but in this video what we're going to do is we're going to take these bags and we're going to bring it outdoors in order to grow mushrooms a little bit different of what we do inside. Now, very important that you understand this. There's different types of substrate that we use in order to inoculate it with the spawn, which could be compost, coffee ground, cardboard, paper, stumps, gardening residues, corn cob seeds. It's whatever. The best thing to work with is grain, obviously, to create the spawns, sawdust, wood shave like this one, straw or hay, like if you can see in here, dowel plugs. This is very interesting and good because in here we can inoculate wood logs, and obviously we'll get mushrooms.
I'm going to show you today 3 methods: the bucket methods, the logs or wood logs method, and the outdoor mushroom garden. Let's go ahead and start with the buckets method.
I think the best way to explain this is with this diagram. So you need 2 buckets, one with the lid, the other one just empty. After this, you need to drill holes to one of the buckets. Depending on how big the bucket is how many holes you would do. So in this case, for a 5-gallon bucket, just like the regular bucket that you buy in the Home Depot, Lowe's, etc., you would do 5 holes in the top, 5 holes in the bottom. After this, you need to make sure that you have this other bucket and that you can fit this bucket inside the other bucket. Then after that, you seal it with the lid. This is the main and the principle of this method. Now let's go back to the actual bucket that has holes. So we start with this, then we need this. So we need this substrate. In this case, this worked perfectly fine for oyster mushrooms. So what we need is hay or straw or hay. then I created this thing. This is just chicken wire. So creating some sort of like a sack or bucket, if I can say bucket. And then you would use this to put it in here, in one of these 55-gallon drums or tank. So you would fill this with water until like pretty much halfway, 40%, 45% of water, because you want this water to boil, all right, and create steam. Now this straw is like this in the middle. So some of the straw would be touching the water. The other one, it would get the steam of it. Okay, so just remember, we want to pasteurize this. It would be almost impossible to use this as a sterilization process, but at least you pasteurize. And pasteurize pretty much is to heat it up to a certain point that can kill or eliminate most of the organism. It's not 100% sterilization, but it would eliminate most of the organisms, bacteria, yeast, or fungus, or contaminant fungus. After this, then after 2 hours, I normally leave it for 2 to 3 hours. Right, 2 to 3 hours after it start boiling. So you need to make sure. So this whole process, it would take me 3.5 hours to 4 hours in order to do, because believe it or not, this is a lot of water and we need a lot of heat in order to start boiling that water. After this, you pretty much want to get that sterilized straw. So obviously it comes from here to the bucket. Okay, after you put that straw, so you can see it here, the bucket, then you add the mycelia grain or the mycelia substrate. In this case, as you see here, these are the grain. This is corn, all right, completely colonized by the, in this case, oyster mushroom or pleurotus. Okay, then you pretty much done. After this, you seal it, and then you wait 2 to 3 weeks for the mycelia to grow.
So here's the setup. So you need 2 buckets. This bucket is the one that you need to clean first. So in order to clean this, you either use bleach, alcohol. I use something that is called spore cleanse, which kills or eliminate all the spores. So you need to do that. Now, just remember, we are pasteurizing or some sort of sterilization, but it's not completely sterile just because we are here outdoors, so everything is exposed to air. So you have this bucket, and then you have the bucket that we just prepared with the mushrooms and also the straw, the hay that we pasteurized. So now the lid is completely closed. So you can see this has holes in it. Obviously this should be completely clean. At the same time, before I put it here, I spray it with ethanol, spore cleanse, and other Lysol cleaners. After that, then I put it inside. Now it's ready to go for 2 to 3 weeks for incubation.
Let's see it now step by step. Put the straw or hay in a big bucket, could be a drum like this one, and I use the weed whacker just to try to shred those straw or the hay. You can use whatever method you want or you can use in order to break down in small pieces. Then I invented this thing. It's just pretty much some sort of sack, and then you put it to boil and to steam up in this big drum. You can use like a turkey fryer, but obviously you pretty much would scale down. After it's done, then you put that straw, that substrate, into the bucket. As you can see in here, it's still steamy, so that's good because it is actually very hot at this point, and that helps on having it mostly pasteurized. So after you put that in the bucket, then you take the spawn, which is pretty much the grain and the mycelia as we talked before, and then you put it on top of this hay that's being pasteurized, just as you can see in here. After that, pretty much you top it off, you can top it up with a little bit more substrate if you want. After that, you close the lid and then you wait 2 to 3 weeks until that mycelia colonize all the straw inside these buckets. Now, another thing that is very important, do not go over those 2 to 3 weeks because this can happen. As you can see, I still have that bucket here inside the other bucket. So the mycelia is growing through the two buckets, and now is producing basidocarps, in this case the oyster mushrooms, through the buckets. This is not good because production can affect by this. So it is very important that you wait 2 to 3 weeks until that mycelia is fully colonized. Then you need to remove that bucket and wait until the mushrooms comes out. When you remove the inner bucket, it would look like this. In this case, there's mycelia coming out of those holes. So this is ready to start growing and producing those oyster mushrooms. This is ready to either put it outside if the temperatures are from 65 to 75 at the most with a lot of humidity, or you can leave it indoor in a small greenhouse with humidity, air. You can have it also indoors in a room that that you don't care about any spores or anything like that, because this mushroom would produce a lot of spores. So in a garage, in a basement, but you have to be a little bit careful if it's in a basement, because these mushrooms, when they open, would produce a lot of spores.
Now let's take a look at the wood logs method. Just remember, we need to drill those logs, and then we can use whatever substrate that has mycelia in order to do this part.
So here is a quick representation of it. So you need the logs, obviously. In this case, this has been inoculated already. As you can see here, there is a mushroom growing here. There you can see mycelia in these areas. Maybe you can see the holes of these logs. This is pretty much the second year of it. So we already extracted a lot of mushrooms from these logs. But let's take a look at this. So you need just a log, then a drill, then you drill holes in it, and pretty much that's it, right? So pretty much you have two different kinds of techniques. You can either use wood dowels, and later on I'm gonna go over that, but pretty much is, since this wood dowels are just that, wood, the mycelia can actually grow on them, just as you can see here on the edges, and you can see here all the dowels. So you can pretty much put the dowels in the logs, or you can use the bags on stage 3, which is pretty much the mycelia growing on the substrate. You can use this tool here, which is pretty much a syringe, to create this pretty much mycelia blocks. Or there's other tools that I would show you later on. But this is it. So after that, you introduce this in there, or the dowels, with a hammer, and then you cover it with wax. What are you doing? Come on, boy. Come on, boy. This part is very important because you want to seal that substrate that is in there. You can actually see it here. Well, those white areas, that is pretty much the wax covering the holes. After you do that, pretty much you can put these logs in a place that you don't get that much sun, and then pretty much try to observe the growth of these mushrooms. Enjoy! This is the other option, the wood dowels. The only problem that I see with this is they are sort of expensive of what you pretty much want to spend on this. But again, it is a great option. The mycelia already colonize a piece of wood. I mean, it's very similar to the substrate that is more of a sandy substrate, but again, in this case, you drill holes in the logs and with a hammer or with your hands put it there, and then you seal it with wax. Now you might be asking how you do it. Get the dowels, get it wet, put it in a mason jar just like this one, and obviously you need the mycelia, which in this case is on the plate. Inoculate those dowels with mycelia or grains, the spawn, and then you have it. Obviously you have to sterilize that mason jar with the dowels before, so make sure you sterilize that first. Then after that, then you inoculate with the spawn or any sort of mycelia, and you have your dowels completely colonized in a few weeks.
Lastly, let's take a look at the mushroom garden. I'm not going to share that many things with you about mushroom garden or how to do it, because I made a video already to how to do a mushroom garden. So go ahead and take a look at that video, but still I'm going to share some things with you in this video.
Simply prep an area that you know that is not sunny or that doesn't get that much sun, and get your mycelia. In this case, you can actually see there's contaminants in there, but remember, this is outdoors, so you pretty much dump all the buckets, bags, or everything that's left over from your mycelia, from your straw that's being colonized, from your flushes, and then just put it there, cover it with mulch, and you can enjoy the mushrooms in a few weeks. Take a look at this. Just spread the mycelia. As you can see, there's mulch in there, but I still put all the mycelia around it. You can actually put grains in it also. Then you cover it with mulch and you will have mushrooms just like this one. You can see the difference between the mushrooms that grow indoors versus the outdoor. The only problem that I can see is you need to watch out for bugs, because you would probably get bugs in it. But again, you can enjoy very good and healthy mushrooms. Take a look. On the left, mushrooms that have been grown outdoor, and on the right, mushrooms that have been grown indoors. Like doing this, you can grow mushroom anywhere, pretty much anywhere that you have a shaded area and obviously mulch.
I hope you like this video, and I hope that you enjoyed this series of 3 videos of how I grow mushrooms at home. Again, there's a lot of different techniques of how to do this. Some of them work way better for other people than for me. I have done it, I've tried methods from other people, and for some reason they don't work for me. So as of now, this is pretty much what works for me on my scale. I haven't done anything big scale. So as of now, it's mushrooms for me, for my family to eat, for me to do pills, etc., teas. So I really hope that you can actually get some good information, combine this information with your own research, and then just try to develop your own methods of growing mushrooms at home.